Barrington, and producer Mark Miller. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hi everybody. Hi. So we wanted to tell you a few little things before it started, and mostly we'll talk to you about the movie afterwards. But I'd like Mark to talk first because he can tell you how he came across what led to this kind of cut. So I'll let Mark talk first and I'll tell you what happened next.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Well, I was reading on the IMDb message boards, you know, filtering through the garbage that's on there, and I found out that I had become friends with Clive, and I found out that there was all this missing footage. I never knew, and so I sent him a text message, and I just said, "Hey, what if I made a couple calls and I try to get the footage back?" And he said, "You know, by all means, that'd be fantastic." So I made some calls, and I ended up talking to the editor, Mark Goldblatt, and he said, even if the footage doesn't exist, there is somewhere a VHS tape of his sort of work print, his rushes, and you know, a couple weeks later we found him. We were doing some spring cleaning in Clive's office, and behind a dresser there are these PAL VHS tapes from 1989 that said Nightbreed on them. And I rushed home and I tried to watch them, and I live in the States, and obviously I couldn't. So I sent them to the folks that run Clive's website, Phil and Sarah Stokes, and they digitized it. And lo and behold, there was footage. But the problem was there was no story, there was no continuity. It was just all this jumble with sound missing and bits and pieces here and there. And that's what we screened 2 years ago in Indiana. And it didn't go so well. I mean, it was cool to see the footage, but I'd say about half the audience walked out. And Russell came that summer, and he said, "Hey, I'd like to take a look at that. You know, I'm a fan. You're a fan. Let's, as two fans, let's watch this and talk about it." And so I burned a copy for him. He took it back home and came to the office not that long ago, and I nearly peed my pants, because he had taken the liberty of digitizing everything, putting the DVD on a computer as well, melding the two and creating this composite cut. And I swear to God, I rushed home that night and I watched the whole thing in one sitting. And he can tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I kind of did this without anybody knowing. So I came along, and I go up there about 4 or 5 times a year. I go to Clive's and do various projects and work. And so Mark was green enough to be new. So I said, basically, "Oh, make me a copy." So the day he brought me a copy of the rushes, and I knew in my head I was up to mischief. Right? So I knew in my head that I was going to take it home and I was going to cut it up and mess with it and try and reconstruct it. And I had everything. I had the script, I had the novel, I had the other versions, I had music, I had everything. And basically, I teach 16 and 35mm film. So for 10 years, I've taught students, and I spotted kind of the best editor I've ever met as a student is a horror nut. So I said to him, I said, "Do you want to get involved in it? We'll do a project." So he went and spent like $2,500 on an editing system just to do this out of his own money, and we basically started working on it. And each thing fell into place every single day, and it was. You know, I knew from the beginning that I wasn't remaking Nightbreed. I knew that I was actually making Cabal. So, I mean, you guys read Cabal? Yeah, right. Right, so I kind of left Nightbreed behind in one sense and made Cabal. And the story changed in front of my eyes. Everything became different. As you'll see when you watch it, you'll see that different characters live, different things happen, and from that first work print, I made a version that was 2 hours 37 minutes long, and then when I took it and Mark peed his pants, he kind of said to me, "Guess what? I've got another work print. We found another one, and it's got the musical number in it." Now this musical number is legendary, you know, and everybody wanted to see it, and it was talked about for years. Well, that's restored and in there. So basically, we had all those elements, and I went back and I spent another 3 months integrating and taking things out and working it out, and then I brought it back, and then Clive finally watched that version, and he went absolutely apeshit. He's just, oh my god, and then I get these excited messages, and I started to get notes from him about changes. And you know, the best thing for me as a filmmaker was he asked me to change 3 things in a 2-hour, 37-minute movie. He didn't ask for me to redo this. He asked me to move one thing, trim one thing, and put a piece of sound in. That was it, and that made me feel that, you know, my empathy had worked. And so we did that, and then lo and behold, somebody got in touch with you and asked to screen it. But they didn't ask to screen what we'd done. They asked to screen the rough as shit work print. And you know, and Mark said, "Ha, we've got something much better than that. We've got a Cabal cut." And they, what's a Cabal cut? And Mark kind of explained it, and we took it to a convention and screened it. And I mean, it wasn't like tonight. It wasn't beautiful. It didn't have great seats. It was in a horror convention auditorium where, you know, with a video projector for a computer onto, you know, one of these portable screens. But you know what? Within a week, there was about 5,000 people wanting to watch this movie. Within a week. And then we went back, and Morgan Creek basically started to acknowledge what we were doing. And basically now we get maybe about 7 screening requests per week to see this. So we know on Friday I screened it to 800 people in Chicago, and that was fantastic. 800 people came to watch Nightbreed, the Cabal Cup. And you know, I think that we're on the right course with it. Now, last thing I'm going to say before we start is you've got to understand now that what you're watching comes from 3 sources. It comes from a DVD, it comes from 2 VHS work prints. So there will be little dips in quality. You understand that, don't you, from VHS? It's not going to hurt your viewing experience at all, I promise. Because what film is about, and this is where I go into film lecturer mode, is about story. And what you're going to get now is the story and the film that you would never, ever, ever would have seen. Right? The one the studio wouldn't let you see, the one that you should have seen 22 years ago. And it's on that screen. Yes, we are going to try and get a full restoration. You're going to help us with that. In fact, you are now, because you're watching it. Right? And Morgan Creek need to see dollars adding up to enough to give us $150,000 to do a restoration. So they need to work out, you know, they're going to get $10 a DVD, they need 15 to 20,000 people to buy it. Right now, you know, they just see, oh well, we'll let them go for a year. After that year, we'll see what happens. So thank you for your support. Right? And remember, after you've watched this, if you leave before the Q&A, the best thing you can do for us is go to Occupy Midian, which is our website, and sign the petition and go onto the Facebook group, because that makes Morgan Creek aware of us. Both me and Mark will be around. You can tell us whatever you want, and whatever you say, we'll get back to Clive via us after the screening tonight. So, okay, I'm going to put Mark back on, and I'll see you after the movie.
I just want to say, yes, it is. What was the running time? 90 minutes. Now it's 2 hours 25 minutes. 2:24. 2:24. That is. I'm not good at math, but let's say there's 45 minutes of extra footage.
It's 55 extra footage, but it isn't really.
Well, that's the thing. It's 55 minutes of extra footage, but it's 55 minutes longer, but there's more than 55 minutes of extra footage. The film you're going to watch tonight is not Nightbreed, it's Cabal. So.
All right,
enjoy.
Let's go to Midian. We're going to have these gentlemen back after. Stick around for the Q&A. We're also going to have makeup effects designer Paul Jones here. Enjoy.